Welcome back to the channel. So once again, they're talking about Ripple competing against Swift. I think it's pretty clear to see Ripple is trying to bring Swift to its knees. They're trying to bring them to the negotiating table. I think they're going to be successful in that. I really do. And once again, watch that Swift deadline that's coming up. I believe it's in September. It's going to tell us a lot. If a lot of companies do not comply, if they simply pay the fine, if they don't comply with what Swift is saying to get on board with, then they're waiting on something. Then the next question is, what are they waiting on? But wait, this article is titled this. And they actually give a little bit of information. It's interesting for those of us who like to dissect this type of information. This article is titled How Ripple is Taking on Swift to Grab 14% Market Share as XRP price surges. You know, we heard about this before, the whole 14%. Brad Garlinghouse came out and he was talking about attempting to do that. I know that he's lowballing that number. They intend to do much, much more than that. Why would you cap yourself? It's not a cap. They're just giving you a roundabout, very, very safe estimate of what they believe they can do. If that's the safe estimate, then what's the unsafe estimate, right? All right, so let's move on here. Let's go back down here because when we scroll down this article here, it gets a little interesting. Now listen to this. It says in the Philippines, for instance, they're talking about Ripple and, you know, XRP and usage. In the Philippines, for instance, Union Bank has become the first fully licensed virtual asset bank and has adopted RippleNet and ODL to support faster inbound transfers. Now, as I'm reading this, I want you to let your mind run. Let your mind work. And you tell me what's interesting about this. They're focusing us. Whenever someone tries to focus me on one particular aspect, I ask myself, what are they trying to, what is it that they don't want me to see? What is it that they may be taking focus away from? I don't know how to convey this. I always feel like there's something that they don't want me to see or that they're negating. There's something more potent than this. This is just the obvious. Let's continue on. And then I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I'll explain to you what I mean by that. It says, in the Philippines, for instance, Union Bank has become the first fully licensed virtual asset bank and has adopted RippleNet and ODL to support faster inbound transfers. China Bank, another bank in the Philippines, in collaboration with Qatar National Bank, has implemented XRP-backed transfers to eliminate intermediary banks for transactions between Qatar and the Philippines. All right. Sounds pretty good so far, right? In India, I like how they structure this. I'll say that. I do. They went from Philippines to India. In India, major private banks like Yes Bank and Axis Bank are using XRP to support the live remittance corridors linking the country to Southeast Asia, Mexico, and Brazil. They keep going. This is a good article. Interestingly, Ripple is also deepening its reach in Brazil. They've been in Brazil a long time. I hate to break it to you, article writer. I'm not saying that they've unveiled all their partnerships in Brazil, but they've been working there a long time. Ripple is in Brazil. I believe Stellar also is in Brazil. Algorand has some reach in Brazil also. But let's continue on. Travelex Bank in Brazil, the first FX-focused bank licensed to use on-demand liquidity in the region, relies on XRP to remove the need for pre-funded liquidity. In Mexico, I'm glad they touched on Mexico. Let's see what they have to say. In Mexico, Ripple's partnerships with the local non-bank financial entities support real-time payouts using XRP. Also, don't ever forget, in Mexico, that's where they first tested offline QR code payments, one, and that's also where this is what I remember, and also where they first tested payroll. Oh, that payroll. Why doesn't anybody want to talk about that? You don't think payroll for all of these big companies, small and medium-sized companies, in addition to that, you don't think that that's trillions of dollars globally? You think they worked on payroll for nothing? I'm keeping my eye on payroll. That's all I have to say about that. So let's continue on here. It says, even in the Middle East, who wrote this article? This is a good article. Even in the Middle East, they're showing the takeover. This is a little. That's why I want people to notice. This is a little. This is not even 25% of what Ripple has done. If you know, If you've been here for a long time, you've heard bank names. They didn't cover what they're doing in Australia. They didn't cover what they're doing in United Kingdom. They didn't cover what they're doing in Europe. Why didn't they mention the company that is on the XRPL and they're using, obviously they use XRP. XRP, everything that's on the XRPL affects XRP, utilizes XRP to some degree. And the ECB, I believe the central bank, is working with a company that uses XRP. Why didn't they mention that? There's so much that's going unsaid. It shows you how much Ripple and these companies using XRP are doing. They didn't even mention, and I know this is just right here. Let me refocus. This is in correlation with them going against Swift. I get it. Okay. All that other stuff is important. If you're an article writer, you have to understand. Most people are interested in XRP for what it does overall. That's going to lend to that price exploding. Not just them competing with Swift, although that's a massive thing if they could take a huge percentage of business from Swift, value from Swift. But XRP treasuries, RWA, interbank payments outside of them competing with Swift, with banks that might not be a part of that system. All of that is interesting to those who are like myself. It says even in the Middle East, where regulatory compliance is very rough, institutions with like Lulu Exchange, Zandbank, and Mamo have adopted Ripple's payment infrastructure for regulated settlements, largely focused on APAC, APAC, and global remittance corridors. Okay, and once again, and then you can look up all of these names. You can look at their financials, and I'm going to assume, I haven't done it yet, I'm going to assume it might be easier now to get your hands on that information than it was years ago when we did it, when there was no AI. We literally had to go on the website, search through the website, which could be very tedious, get the documents, open them up, scan through them, and look for the powerful information. Now, I would assume that people could maybe, if so, this would be great. And it should have this capability, I think. If you can go onto like the whatever AI that you use, if people use AI and just ask them how much value moves through this or that, or I don't know if it can do that, but I would try it. And maybe you can get the numbers that way. And once you know how much value is moving through these banks, that gives you a pretty good idea. Once again, they didn't cover any of the major institutions. These are good institutions. They didn't cover the big ones. Right? That really could move XRP. All right. And that's where they leave it off. Well, that was a good article. I'll tell you that right now. This is coming from bitcoinist.com. So they didn't even go over the potentiality of what the connections Ripple has in the United States. That's major. Major. Once they start coming out with announcements about the various banks utilizing XRP in the United States, I think they all know. This is why they're holding it back heavily. That's going to move that price. It's not about retail. I'm telling you. When the companies hear that, they're going to say, they just made it too bullish. They're going to start gobbling XRP up. They're already trying to do that with their XRP treasuries. And that price will explode. Everyone's going to know, the environment has gotten super bullish now. They'll start gobbling XRP up. That price will start skyrocketing, in my humble opinion. And that's without the utility fully kicking in just yet. That's without interbank payments. That's without RWA. But it's up to you to watch. It's not financial advice, okay? It's for you to watch. You have to take the time, a little bit of research each week. Read a couple of articles, put that in your Google News algorithm, your Yahoo News algorithm, and it's going to be very observable. They can't hide it now. XRP is too big. Ripple's too big. SBI is too big. That news is going to hit. And when it does, a lot of entities are going to make a move. So now we have that. I want to show you something else that's interesting. And I think they're going to dominate Swift. Swift is over. What you know of as Swift is over. They cannot operate the way that they used to. So something new must be born so that the powers of the world can continue in a fashion that they're used to. If not, they're in trouble. And the system, once one domino in the system falls, all the dominoes will begin to fall. Look at this. This article is titled, Bank of England could mothball digital pound program. That is very suspicious. Just the consideration of that. It said could. It doesn't say that it will. Could. Why would that be even a consideration? What has changed this year that would even make them contemplate mothballing or doing away with the digital pound project? Well, one thing that definitely has changed is the bank coins have been unleashed globally. Better and better regulations and legislations being rolled out around the world so everybody can use bank coins the way that they're supposed to. And one of the ways that they can be used is to have a stable coin that benefits. Look at stable coins. Let's call it what it is. Stable coins are a stripped down basic CBDC. I'm not the one who said that. I didn't invent that. That's what the Fed said. The Fed came out with paperwork that should still be on the internet and accessible today, readable by anybody today. They came out with that about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Everybody was reading it back then. All right. That's what a stable coin is. So because a stable coin doesn't have the power and the features of a CBDC, it can still benefit from the native tokens. It can get that from XRP. It can get that from Solana. It can get that from XLM. It borrows their powers, wearing them like some costume. So if the stable coin needs liquidity, you have that, the stable coin here, XRP here, or you have the stable coin here, you have XRP in the middle, the stable coin runs into XRP for liquidity. The value is moved from the stable coin to XRP. Then it borrows XRP's speed and low cost, moves something across the world, and on the other side it comes out. The XRP is, and the value that it holds from the stable coin is converted back into whatever fiat currency on the other side. That's what changed, right? Can we be honest? That's what changed. So it may give them pause. A lot of these institutions pause and say, wait a minute, because once again, some of them were foolish and they're trying to do their own heavy lifting, even though the BIS itself said, hey, listen, we don't want to do the heavy lifting. Let's let the private sector do the heavy lifting. We'll just run everything. And we think that's the way that it should be for all major banks. Well, some of them didn't listen, and they're still struggling along. And they've realized they haven't done enough in time. So maybe, just maybe, not maybe they continue forward with this, but just maybe they say, you know what? All right, let's just do it another way. There's a better way. And if you don't think that Ripple or Quant, who works with Bank of England majorly, and remember with the quant system, although everything in the quant system affects Q and T, that's going to be a major thing. Not too many people talk about Q and T. It has so much potentiality, it's unbelievable. But quant system also works with XRP. Did people forget? XRP is one of the first digital assets that the quant system works with. I think the first few were, from what I remember years ago, was XRP, Ethereum, and XDC. I think that's what it was. Was it XDC? I believe it was. So it works with XRP. So either way, if they want to use Ripple systems, if they want to use the XRPL directly, which I doubt it, because looking at what the Bank of England has done, or they want to use Quant system because they've been working extensively with Quant, but still they could use XRP. Once again, the whole liquidity and all of that, they're not going to be able to beat XRP. And even though Q&T price, I expect at some point, once again, not financial advice, just my humble opinion. Let me speak for myself. All right. Even though Q&T price is probably going to explode astronomically in the next 2 years, 3 years or so, I'm talking about astronomically. It should. If it does what it's supposed to do, we shall see. I could be wrong on that. I'm not an absolutist. I'm not a know-it-all. But even with that, nothing, I don't think, is going to beat XRP when it comes to global liquidity. They're out front. Everybody else has to play catch up. This is a fact. They have so many connections to big businesses, small, medium-sized businesses. They've talked about that. They talk about RWA. They've made strides towards these things. They have a connection with a ton of central banks. They've made strides towards these things. They have done the most. Besides them and Chainlink have done the most. It's undeniable. So you still want to tap into that liquidity. If I'm Bank of England, I'm going to work with the best of the best. I don't want, if I do go with using a stable coin, and Ripple has talked about making stable coins for other fiat currencies other than the US dollar, which is smart. I was trying to convey that in one video recently. I probably didn't say that as eloquently as I should have, as I could have, but some days I have rough days. Today is a rough day. Some days my mind is just cruising and it's smooth and all the thoughts are coming out perfectly. And then you have days like today, which was a hard day. So stress gets to me sometimes. And a lot of things, stress me out. It's a hard day, and then it makes it difficult for me to convey my thoughts. But that's what I was trying to convey. I do my best that I can at those times. But anyway, I will work with the best of the best. I don't want to take any chances. I don't need my stable coin to be depegged, but I still need those low transaction fees. I still need to be able to send a payment in pieces, but have it count as one. You can do that on XRPL with XRP, but you can only use XRP. That's what people don't get. Some of these mechanisms on XRPL, you can only use XRP. I don't understand why people don't get that. But if that does indeed happen, which these are the best offerings that the XRPL has, the advanced mechanisms that Ripple was talking about, XRP's price is going to go galactic, period. It's going to go galactic. And once again, I know that's hard to believe for a lot of people. I don't need them to believe it. I just need XRP's price to do what it does. Like, that makes it. We don't need people to believe. We just need that price to do what it does. The truth is the truth, whether people like it or not. And we all know from history, a lot of people don't like the truth. They like a sweet lie rather than a harsh truth. That's just what it is. But the truth of the matter, in my humble opinion, is that, that price should go galactic. So once again, let's go circle back around. Bank of England could mothball digital pound project. Maybe they're looking at using Q&T system. Quant has been in their ear for years. Ripple has been in their ear for years. Q&T system can utilize XRP. They can move XRP. We shall see. Keep a close eye on this, folks, and we'll see how this all works out. So now, this article is titled, "This Isn't a Top." Here's why Bitcoin analysts say Bitcoin will break $123,000. It's inevitable, in my humble opinion, but it begins here. Several Bitcoin on-chain metrics are suggesting that Bitcoin's market structure remains strong and the bull cycle has more room to run. I agree with that. I don't know how anyone sees anything else, unless they're in love with the negative. They're in love with things being dramatic and that adrenaline rush when things are chaotic. But there's a balance to everything. You have your chaotic time period. Then on the flip side, and change is the only constant, and everything tries to reach a state of balance. On the flip side, you're going to have times where things are pretty stable to a degree, and if not in price, right? Let's negate the stability in price idea. Put that to the side. There's stability in the catalyst. And because of that, it's going to show you constant resilience. Have we seen that? Yes. So right now it's showing, at the time of this article, Bitcoin is in the red at $117,000, $117,621. That's still resilience. It's going higher. $123,000 is easy at this point. That's easy. That's nothing. And it's climbing little by little by little, but it's still climbing, right? And if it can do that, then we know crypto is known for its explosions. Though those explosions don't stop because Bitcoin reached this amount of value. There's a ton of companies that haven't gotten in yet. A ton of states that want Bitcoin, they haven't gotten in yet. So the potentiality for the future is still huge. $123,000 is nothing. But let me continue to read this here. It says Bitcoin remains pinned below $120,000 after reaching a fresh all-time high near $123,000 last week. As Bitcoin price consolidates, numerous market analysts are convinced that the cycle is not over. I agree with that. I don't believe it's over. Bitcoin fundamentals remain strong. I love it when they use these technical phrases, and then you got a lot of people they're casual partakers in crypto. They don't know what this stuff means. They're coming home tired from work. Let's just be real, folks. They're coming home tired from work. They don't have time for research. Their children, they got to take care of them. They're tired from that. Run them to school. They're tired from that. They're running their business. They're tired from that. Everything is wearing them out. They don't have time to learn about these type of things. But Bitcoin fundamentals, just say catalyst. The people know what that means. Or you could say, just speak plainly to the people. Bitcoin is looking good. So they'll know. I don't know. This is my humble opinion. It says analytics firm, and it's true. Bitcoin is looking good. That puts them at ease. They can relax, kick their feet up. They just came from the doctor. Oh, Bitcoin is looking good. Bitcoin's doing good. Okay. And they sit back in their recliner chair and they can relax and have that stress relieved from their mind. They don't need to guess. My humble opinion. Analytics firm Bitcoin Vector said that although Bitcoin's momentum has slowed, multiple on-chain metrics suggest that Bitcoin cycle is not over. Quote, momentum has cooled, but structure and fundamentals remain solid, unquote, the firm said in a Tuesday post on X, adding, quote, this isn't a top. It's a coiled setup with support beneath it. The Bitcoin fundamental index remains strong, reflecting increasing network growth and liquidity as shown in the chart below. With Bitcoin price compressed, quote, fundamentals are pausing, not weakening. I could agree with that. That makes sense. Said Bitcoin Vector, adding, quote, it's the price that needs to catch up. I like this. This was some pretty good articles today. I wish that my mind was flowing a little bit smoother so I could have maxed out these articles today, to be quite honest, and really dive into them with the fullness of my perspicacity. But yeah, every day is different. In the short term, buyers should simply be waiting for confirmation of the breakout as Bitcoin plays the, quote, structural anchor for the whole crypto market, said private wealth manager Swiss Block. They're all waiting to feast on Bitcoin. Once again, I want to reiterate, folks, do I believe this is going to go on forever? No, I'm not saying that. Not at all. But over the next year and a half, I think Bitcoin has great potential to explode to new highs that most can't fathom. That's number one. Number two, keep your eye on the catalyst and make your own decisions. Be safe out there. Make your own decisions. If you watch the catalyst, it's going to tell you when things are going up. It's going to tell you when things are going down. When you start to see most of the businesses are into Bitcoin, that's when I will start to say to myself, it's about to be over. Those know that there's going to be volatility because the companies are going to flex their muscles. They're going to manipulate the markets. They're going to sell. Their friends can get in. 72% of businesses are not into Bitcoin. I think that's just in the US alone. So the companies who are in heavy, they have associations with those other companies. They will sell just to bring the price down. Those other companies will buy in. That's what was it Sentiment and all those professional companies that watch who's buying crypto. That's what they're exposing when they show that prices go down. Some mysterious companies are buying tons of Bitcoin. Why do you think the price went down? Those other companies brought it down because they're in cahoots, for lack of a better word, with these other companies and making way for them. That's going to continue. So expect there to be volatility and there to be dips and maybe even some corrections. I don't know how severe, but it will be temporary because they all want to run that price up. So as you see that percentage of companies rising that's into Bitcoin, and you see the percentage going down who are out of Bitcoin, it go, 72% are not into Bitcoin. Then it goes to 60%, 50 and 40 are not into Bitcoin and 30. And you're like, wait a minute now. There's a lot of them getting into Bitcoin. Let me start to be careful, because then the potential for that wave of money, it shows that wave of value, a lot of it has entered into Bitcoin. I start to ask some questions at that point. Observation is going to be very important, I think, for each individual. That's the best I can say. Unless you have a researcher working for you, a financial analyst working for you, who could help you stay abreast of these things. But if not, you're going to have to do it yourself. All right. So Bitcoin is looking good. Bank coins are looking good. I'm going to go relax right now, folks. I hope you're doing the same. What a day. Holy smokes. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.